In this video, I want to give you a little bit more information about our major project for the semester, the airborne hazard control assignments. So let me go ahead and jump right into it. But let me back up. Over on the right, these are the written instructions that are available on Blackboard, and I'll bring up Blackboard here in just a second and show you where you can find all of the information pertaining to this project on Blackboard. But let's go ahead and get started. First of all, why do this project? Safety professionals, a big part of our job is evaluating workplace hazards. You will be doing a part of that during this project. Safety professionals occasionally have to do some extensive research on workplace hazards. We occasionally encounter hazards that we're not familiar with. It could be a new airborne hazard. That's kind of the scenario we're working with here. Safety professionals, or let me say this, planning is a huge part of safety management. Safety is a product of planning. So the job of a safety professional a lot of times involves coming up with different hazard control plans, safe operating procedures, different types of plans that would, once they're developed and proposed and accepted, they would need to be implemented. Once we develop our plans, there's a presentation involved. Usually we're making a presentation of our control plans to the person who assigned us the task. We may be making a presentation to management, upper management, even at the VP or president level of a company. Little side story here. One of our students, first week of his internship, he had to make a presentation to executives of the company where he was interning. He was really nervous about it, understandably so. Even after 15, 20 years of experience, people are going to be nervous when they're presenting to the top individuals within a company. So making presentations, doing these plans, making these presentations, we do this as safety professionals. And I'm talking about the safety professional level. If you're a safety technician and all you do is pass out safety glasses, you may not have to do this kind of work, but you're going to have a bachelor's degree. You're training to be a safety professional. And at that level, these are the types of tasks that you will do occasionally. Now, we're not going to talk too much about the implementation in this project, but once we develop the plan, once we present the plan to management, once it's accepted by management, then the safety professional will oversee the implementation of the control strategies that were developed in the plan. So the reason we're doing this project is because I want to give you a taste of some of the types of activities that you will be performing as a safety professional with a bachelor's degree for a company like Phillips 66 or Kiewit Construction. Companies that take safety seriously, they expect their safety professionals to perform these types of tasks. And they're also related to what I have on this slide. There are some learning objectives that go along with this project. We're going to learn more about how to access and use resources containing information about hazardous materials. You're going to have to do some research into a variety of resources to learn about the hazardous materials that you're going to be focused on in your paper or in your project. You're going to learn about the properties of a specific airborne hazard, such as silica, ammonia, or carbon monoxide. Now, for your project, you're only going to focus on one, but when you learn how to find this information on one of these different contaminants, then it will be fairly easy for you to do research and find information on other types of contaminants as well. We're going to learn about the exposure limits in more detail for specific airborne hazards. We're going to learn about the different methods and technologies that are available for controlling airborne hazards. And I should say, the reason I'm focusing on airborne hazards, the reason we're focusing on airborne hazards for this project, that many of the industrial hygiene types of hazards that we face in a variety of workplaces are airborne. They're vapors, fumes, particulates that are floating around in the air, and when they're floating around in the air, they can affect workers' health. They can even have fatal, catastrophic effects depending on the substance. Carbon monoxide, kills people every year. H2S kills people every year. Airborne hazards. But what we're doing, this process that you're going through, this would also apply to other types of safety planning activities as well. The process would cross over into other types of hazards as well. But those are 4 project learning objectives. Let's look at some more. Learn about respiratory protection devices available to control worker exposure to airborne hazards. We're going to have a unit on respiratory protection before we're done this semester. So you're going to hear about respiratory protection methods and devices in class, but you're also going to do some additional research perhaps to learn more about respiratory protection technologies that can be used to protect workers from your specific airborne hazard. You're going to have some practice writing a control plan or a program. Control plan, control program, safe operating procedure, these are some terms that are often used interchangeably. Now, there might be slight differences in how some companies would define the different terms, but it's basically the same thing. It's a plan for working safely. And in this case, we're writing a plan for working safely around specific airborne hazards. This written plan, will contain information about the hazard and about the control measures. You will also get a little bit of practice making proposals, management types of presentations. Practice collaborating with others is very important. Once you're out there and you get your first full-time job at the safety professional level, you're not going to be this lone wolf doing all this by yourself. You'll be working with other people. As you work with other people, you'll be expected to pull your weight, to do your part, to successfully complete the task, the assignment, the project, whatever it might be. But let's talk about the task. And what I've done here on the slide is I've just cut and pasted from the written instructions that are on Blackboard. But here's the task that you're working on for this project. Your employer is expanding its operations into new unfamiliar territory. These new operations expose personnel to unique airborne hazards not previously encountered. The corporate safety director has asked you and a colleague, and you're going to be working in groups of 2 or 3, no more than 3, but you're going to be working with someone to develop a rough draft of a program for controlling the unfamiliar airborne hazards. And you will choose from several airborne hazards. And the airborne hazards that you can choose from are over on the right on the instruction sheet. We have methyl ethyl ketone, airborne lead, airborne silica, beryllium, sawdust, cadmium, benzene, cotton dust or grain dust. Looks like I've got about 18 of them here that are listed. Now, there are some other airborne contaminants that you could possibly work on. If your team has an idea for another airborne contaminant that's not on this list, let me know. Get it approved by me. It may be okay. Just let me know your idea, and we'll go from there. Now, the 18 that I do have here, these are some of the more common airborne hazards that you see in a lot of different workplaces. And when I say airborne hazards in a lot of different workplaces, we're talking about manufacturing, all types of manufacturing, tire manufacturing, oil and gas refining, chemicals processing. We're talking about construction, all types of construction operations. There can be exposure to silica, beryllium, carbon monoxide. There can be oxygen deficiency problems, which is listed here as an airborne hazard. Not having enough oxygen. Not having enough oxygen probably kills more people than most of these other hazards. Oxygen deficiency is an overlooked airborne hazard. But these are the more common airborne hazards that you see across all industries. Even the other industries that you may not think about, the healthcare industry. There are airborne hazards in the healthcare industry, the drugs and the chemicals that are used within a healthcare environment. Food and restaurant. There have been people who have died, restaurant workers who have died from chemical exposure. One specific example, and this is not a real common occurrence, I'll have to admit, but it can happen. One example from several years ago, a worker was mixing up some cleaning chemicals, and they mixed up the wrong chemicals. They mixed up some reactive chemicals. It gave off a poisonous gas once these two chemicals were mixed, and the worker lost his life because he mixed the wrong chemicals together. He inhaled that poisonous gas, and it took his life. So even something like the restaurant industry and healthcare, where we wouldn't think of there being major airborne hazards, there can be airborne hazards in just about any workplace. But again, this is the task. And you're going to have a couple of deliverables. Oh, one more thing I want to say about this task before I talk about the deliverables. This is the type of planning task that you may be asked to do as a safety professional. In a real workplace scenario, it may even be as extreme as your boss comes in on a Friday afternoon and says, hey, I need you to work up this control plan for a meeting that we're having Monday morning. So what are you doing? You're working over the weekend, and hopefully you have some colleagues working with you to help put this together over a weekend so that you'll have a professional proposal ready to go on a Monday morning. That's happened to me a few times. That's not the most common scenario you're going to see for this type of planning. Normally, you're going to have plenty of time. It's not going to be rushed. But it's happened to me a couple of times. And when it's happened to me, it's always an emergency repair job. In the construction industry, in my segment of the construction industry, we did what we called emergency repairs. Maybe a semi hit an overpass, and when there's an accident like that, they have to get that roadway repaired as quickly as possible. So the accident could happen on a Friday, and the work crew has to be ready to go on a Monday or Tuesday. And part of having that work crew ready to go on a Monday or Tuesday would be putting together a safety plan for that operation. And now there we're getting into more of what we commonly call an operations safety plan. And here we're even more specific than an operations safety plan. We're just talking about airborne hazards. But when you're working as a safety professional, you're probably going to encounter assignments like this, where your boss says Friday, makes the assignment on Friday, you have to have it ready on Monday or Tuesday. It does happen occasionally. But let's talk about the deliverables, what we're going to actually produce for this project. This is also taken from the written instructions. Your team will write a professional program. It should include an overview of the airborne hazard, including routes of exposure, exposure limit thresholds, potentially harmful effects of exposure, monitoring and evaluation methods, medical surveillance if required. Some of these airborne exposures, we have to have a medical surveillance program. Lead would be an example of an airborne hazard that requires a medical surveillance program. Also, it should include methods, procedures, techniques, equipment to protect workers exposed to the hazards. Now, for this paper, there are no specific length requirements for your written proposal. It should include whatever is needed, however long is needed, to protect the workers. When you're working as a safety professional and you're asked to do a project like this, your boss isn't going to say, I need 10 pages by Monday. Your boss is going to ask you for a quality proposal by Monday or a quality product by Monday. If it takes 20 pages, then that's what it takes. If you can do it in 5 pages, that's even better. But it has to be thorough. It has to be professional. It has to be an effective program. And it can take however many pages are needed for that. In the real world, you're not given page requirements for the tasks that you're assigned. Now, this written program will be due April 7th. And when your team is finished with this written program, you will submit it to me via email. The second part of the assignment, or the second deliverable, is your presentation. Your team will also complete a 15-minute presentation in which your team will summarize the major points components of your program proposal. The presentation will be made via Zoom at a time date convenient for all members of the presentation team and the professor. Video presentations will be made between April 11th and April 28th. So we have about 30 people in the class. We have, let's say we have teams of 3, so we're going to have 10 different presentations. And these are the available dates and times for these presentations. And you'll notice, for those of you who work during the day, I have some evening presentation times available. It's not all during the day. See, they're April 17th, 6 p.m., 6:30 p.m. I even have 8 p.m., 8:30 p.m. if you want to do it even later. And there we have April 24th, 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. I got an entire block of time there reserved for these presentations. So, but you've got plenty of time you need to get your paper done first, and then we'll worry about getting you signed up for one of the presentation dates. And again, this is similar to what you might be doing as a safety professional. You write your program, you write your proposal, then you present that proposal to your supervisor or members of management, like I said previously. Doing the project step by step. Let me give you a rundown step by step of how I would go about doing the project. First of all, form your team of 2 or 3 people. Once you have your team formed, notify me, send me an email with all the names of the team members. I have set up, this is an online class, and it's going to be challenging because it's online and we're not in close contact with one another. It is possible to do this via the internet. We do it every day, especially since COVID. There's a lot of online collaboration on projects like this that takes place. I mean, real world online collaboration, not just college class collaboration. To help with the collaboration, the communication between team members, I've set up a discussion board in Blackboard. Let me go ahead and pull that over here and show you how you find that. Okay, this is in student preview mode, so when you go to Blackboard, over on the left you're going to see several links. And the link here at the bottom, Airborne Hazard Control Project Collaboration. Click on that, and then click on that link, and then you will first need to subscribe. Every student who participates will need to subscribe. Then once you've subscribed to the discussion board, you can create a thread. Let's say Scott goes in and he subscribes and he creates a thread. His thread could be looking for team members to work on the project, and just go from there. And anybody in the class can use this for online collaboration. And once one team has their thread set up, then all those team members can collaborate, can communicate with one another via that thread. Now, there's other ways of collaborating also. You could just use the discussion board to set up your teams. Then once you have your teams set up, then you can collaborate via email. You can exchange phone numbers. There are other ways of doing it. And you don't have to use this at all. If you have friends in the class that you see on a regular basis, you don't have to use the discussion board. I just set this up as another means by which you could collaborate, make collaboration a little easier for those of you who don't have contact with each other or don't have contact with anyone else in the class. All right, again, form your team. Use the discussion board if you want to start collaborating. Once you start collaborating, you guys will work together to choose your airborne hazard. And again, here's the list that you can choose from, or if you have another idea, let me know and get that approved by me. Number 4, examine the sample airborne hazard control program available on Blackboard. And let me go ahead and bring that up here and show you what I'm talking about. All right, let me do this. Here's the sample paper. Let me show you how to find that on Blackboard. Okay, let's go to Learning Modules, and where it says AHC Program Materials, everything related to this project will be in this folder. Click on the link. Then you will see the Airborne Hazard Control Project Requirements and Instructions. That's the document that I've had up throughout most of this presentation. Then the other document that's available at this time in this folder will be the sample program. And notice it's only 10 pages. That was sufficient for this particular example. Your paper could be 15 pages, your paper could be 8 pages. Do whatever it takes to thoroughly discuss the hazards and provide a thorough, effective control plan for those hazards. But look at this example. After you've chosen your airborne hazard, look at this example and kind of use this as a model to work off of. It has all of the different sections that you'll need to have in your paper. You can see how photographs and images are used and so on. I also have some student papers from the past that are pretty good that I could share with you, but I'm kind of reluctant to do that because then if I show you the student papers, then that particular airborne hazard would not be available for you to work on. Because if I show you a paper on carbon monoxide, then that particular hazard is unavailable at that point. Just this paper here that I'm showing you, the sample paper, it's on ammonia. I don't have ammonia on the list. We're going to have everybody do a fresh topic. Research the hazards and research the control measures, and I'll talk about some of the different sources that you can look into. But that was step 5. Write your program, and your program does not have to look exactly like the sample program that I gave you, but it should include all the different sections covered in the sample program. Write a program that you would be comfortable presenting to your supervisor if this were a real workplace task. After you write your program, you get it submitted, prepare your presentation. In the presentation, each team member should have a speaking role in the presentation. So 15-minute presentation, 3 team members, about 5 minutes from each of the team members. It doesn't have to be exactly 5 minutes. I do recommend using PowerPoint for your presentation, but if you don't want to use PowerPoint, there are other ways to do the presentation. It could be just an old school presentation where you share your ideas without any visual aids. But I do recommend using PowerPoint for this. And again, this presentation will be on Zoom during one of those times and dates that I showed you previously. Some information sources that you probably will need to use in putting together your program. Now, these information sources that I'm going to show you here on the slide, I will be providing more information about these sources in class, as the class progresses. But one information source that you could use would be the OSHA technical manuals, OSHA Table Z, which has information about a lot of workplace hazards, a lot of workplace chemical hazards, including airborne hazards, the NIOSH Pocket Guide to Chemical Hazards, the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, more specifically the Toxic Substances Portal, and the toxicological profiles that are put together by this agency. And we will be I'm going to talk about what a technical manual is. I'm going to show you what technical manuals are available. We're going to look at Table Z. We're going to look at the NIOSH Pocket Guide to Chemical Hazards. And we're going to look at the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry as well. And this is all going to happen fairly early in the semester. And now, if you had Safety Management 3423, you may remember some of these terms from that class, but I'm going to go into more detail looking at these different resources in this class. There are other resources available from OSHA, the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, or from NIOSH. There's a wealth of information about all sorts of hazards, not just airborne hazards, but do some research, the kind of research that you might have to do as a safety professional when, let's say you're working at a factory and you have a new process and a new chemical's being used. You're going to have to research that chemical to see, to learn all you can about that chemical. You can also use the textbook as a resource or other published materials. You can also look at existing control plans that have put together maybe by other companies or other agencies. It's okay to look at those existing control plans, but don't copy an existing control plan. Use it as a resource, as a reference, but write your own plan. When it comes to collaboration, I recommend that you divide the work equally, or at least in a way that's going to be agreeable to all team members. When you divide the work, don't just divide it, say, well, so-and-so's doing this and so-and-so's doing that. Don't just go your separate ways from that point. Work together, check each other's work, use each other as a sounding board. Maybe one student does this section and he shows the work he's done to another student. That student looks at it and gives feedback. Try to make this a true collaboration, not just divide it and you just do your own thing and then you come together and write the paper. Keep it collaborative. Truly work together. Help each other with each other's section. When you communicate as a team, include all team members on all communications. If you're a 3-person team, it's not good if just 2 people are communicating. They're not involving the third people. An example of how you would include all people on communications would be if there are emails sent out from one team member, they should be sent to all team members. If a team member emails me a question about the assignment, all team members should be copied on the email. Keep everybody in the loop, just like you would want to do in the real world if you were doing this kind of real world collaboration. Another thing on collaboration, we always run into this. Even in real workplaces, we run into this. What about slackers? Now, if this were a real workplace setting and your boss gave you and 2 other people this assignment, your boss doesn't care who did what. He or she just cares about the job getting done and the job being done correctly. He doesn't want to hear you whining about so-and-so didn't do their part. So-and-so was assigned this part of the project, they didn't do it, and that's why that's so bad. He or she doesn't care about that. So I'm not going to be quite that hardcore, but if you have a slacker in your group, you need to try to motivate that slacker to do their part. If it gets to the point that the slacker becomes uncooperative, I can't speak. If they get uncooperative and they just won't respond to your emails, they just won't do anything, they just completely ignore you, let me know. The uncooperative team member may be eliminated from the group, and they may not receive credit for the assignment if it gets to that point. But if you were doing this in a real work setting, if you had someone who was slacking and not pulling their weight, it would be your responsibility to try to motivate them, try to get them to do their part. And what you never want to do, only as a last resort, you don't want to go whining to your boss and say, John won't do his part. Your boss will expect you to take care of John. And if you can't get John motivated, your boss doesn't care. He or she still expects a quality product from you for whatever assignment they gave you. If you run into any problems with collaboration, let me know. Some other suggestions. Start as soon as possible. Don't wait till the last minute. Don't try to shortcut the project. You're going to have to put some time into this. You're going to have to put some effort into this to develop a quality project. Work on the project in small increments, a little bit at a time. Request assistance from me, but don't call me the night before the paper is due. I probably turn my phone off on that night, the night before the paper is due. But I'm here to help you. If you get started early and you run into a roadblock, you can't find some information, I might be able to help you find that information. If you want to do an early draft of your paper, an early version of your paper, send it to me and have me take a look at it and give you some feedback, or let you know if you're on the right track or not. Do that. If you want to send me your PowerPoint, if you're using a PowerPoint, send that to me and I can give you some tips on that perhaps. I'm here to answer any questions you might have about the project and help you get this project completed. And when I say get the project completed, I'm talking about a professional level, high quality project. Something that looks good, presentation that makes sense, that sounds good. Now, I don't expect perfection necessarily, but you need to do your very best to provide a professional level of product for this assignment, because that's what your supervisors will expect when you get that first job. In the real world, these are the types of activities that could result in a promotion for a worker or could result in a worker losing their job if they do a poor job with it. So once you graduate, it can be very consequential. These types of projects, whether you do a good job or not so good job, can have real consequences for you. All right, get to work. Let me know if you have any questions. Anytime about anything, but especially on this project, I'm here to help you.